competitive do you think it's going to be?
I think it's going to be a lot tougher game than at least our comrades in arid regions out in the desert like to say. The 16, 17 point spread. I think A&M's a really talented, explosive team. Look, Alabama's terrific, but I think it's going to be a little bit closer game than that, a little bit more competitive. I think it's easily to this point Alabama's most difficult game.
Talking to David Pollock, he says he doesn't think
that's your first mistake. Talking to Pollock is your first mistake.
The reason why I bring it up is because he doesn't think Knight's going to have a good game. Is it possible for A&M to win if that doesn't happen?
Absolutely not. They cannot win if the quarterback doesn't have a good game. I don't know that I've seen in this era of dominance that Alabama has had. I mean, think back, have they lost a game where the opposing quarterback didn't play very well? I mean, whether it was Trevor in the Sugar Bowl or Steven Garcia, or certainly Cam, or Chad Kelly. I mean, the quarterback has played well. Bo Wallace. So I would be stunned if A&M wins the game under a circumstance in which Trevor Knight did not play well. Now, what does play well mean? Does that mean that he doesn't run for a lot of yards? Does it mean he's not accurate throwing the ball? He'll have to have some type of impact, whether it's on the ground or making plays in the passing game, where he hasn't been as efficient as they might like. He'll have to play well if they're going to win the game.
When you look at what Alabama's done on defense, you can say they gave up 400 yards to Arkansas, but you also look at what they do to force turnovers and score points themselves. Is this the kind of game where you can expect A&M to put up the yards, or Alabama to basically shut it down?
Well, I think that's the big question. The big question is, how do you handle the zone read? Now, Alabama has changed its defensive philosophy in terms of size of players and speed and things of that nature, and they're much better equipped to deal with the running quarterback. But the situation is, everybody has problems with running quarterbacks, and Trevor can really move. I mean, people think that he can just move. Well, that dude's fast, especially for someone as big as he is. And so that's the question: can they handle the zone reads? And A&M has been as good as anybody. In fact, only Lamar Jackson at Louisville averages more yards per game off of zone read rushes by a quarterback than Trevor Knight. So they're going to have to handle that. And I don't think a conventional running attack ever fares very well against Alabama, but sometimes the quarterback runs and the zone reads a little bit different deal.
People are making a big deal now about Nick Saban and his top 10 teams and how dominant he's been at 23-7 when he's at Alabama. What is it about these top 10 matchups where Alabama rises and the opponent just falls?
It's because of the culture he's established. And I've said this a lot of times, and I know with some of the older guard at Alabama it's not particularly popular, but this is the greatest era of Alabama football ever. And they have established a standard to which they more times than not play, as opposed to being caught up in the magnitude of the game. There's also a culture in which they have played a boatload of big games. So they're not going to necessarily be overwhelmed or phased or too amped for a game. It'll happen from time to time. I mean, they're human, but they're used to the stage. So the stage doesn't bother them. So they tend to perform their best because there's not a lot of anxiety associated with playing in a big game.
So what does A&M have going for them tomorrow? I mean, people say they don't have anything, but what can you find out there?
I don't know who would say they don't have anything. They have two pass rushers who are as good as any in college football, in Deshaun Hall and Myles Garrett. They have an exceptional defensive coordinator. They have athleticism on defense. They have a veteran quarterback who is tough-minded. He might not be the most accurate passer in the world all the time, but he's a good runner, and he makes plays, and he makes big plays. And they also have, perhaps, the best freshman running back in the country. And they also have a group of wide receivers who are extraordinarily dangerous. They've got a lot going for them. Does that mean they're going to beat Alabama? I mean, find out Saturday. But I don't buy this notion that they're somehow completely overwhelmed. That's a really good football team that Kevin has there, for sure, in my judgment.
What does Alabama need to do to get a win over Texas A&M?
They continue doing the things that they've been doing, be disruptive on defense, get Texas A&M behind the chains, long down in distances defensively. Need Jalen Hurts to again be very efficient and to pick his spots running the football well. And they also have to avoid third and long because of those two pass rushers that A&M has. And Hurts has extraordinary numbers, particularly for a freshman, in terms of accuracy when he's not pressured.